Welcome back. I'm Brandon, the HBAR Bull, once again joined by Zepsi. We both do some contract work for the HBAR Foundation, but we don't do these weekly updates in any official capacity. We're just coming to you personally to give you the latest in the Hedera ecosystem. Welcome back, Zep.
How's it going, Brandon?
Well, after this week, it's going pretty darn good, and we're going to dig into it. But this next part is going to be really important. As always, none of this is financial advice. Use it for entertainment or educational purposes only. And the reason why that's so important is because we're going to be talking about the HBAR a fair amount here. The HBAR had a really good week. And there's a bunch of different reasons for that. But on Tuesday, it broke out. And what we're talking about with a breakout is we had going back for a long time in the beginning of 2023, we had hit 10 cents and we got rejected off of that. That was all around the buzz for Atma.io. And even going back before that, in the last bull run, 10 cents was kind of an important number. It also sets up like a psychological importance because it is that round number. So beginning of 2023, we saw a rejection off of that. That makes it even stronger resistance. And then right around this past new year, going into 2024, we once again went up, hit 10 cents, and rejected off of it. Again, that sets it up as even stronger resistance. But this past Tuesday, we went ahead and we broke through that 10 cents. And at least at the time of recording right now, we've been holding well above it. We've also gone back and tested 10 cents a couple times. That sets it up as even stronger support. A lot of times when you break through strong resistance like that, the expectation is that number, whatever it is, and in this case it's 10 cents, is going to flip to support. But until you go down and test it, you really don't know if that's going to be the case. And I think we've tested it 2 or 3 times, which is a really good showing. Now, why this is happening, why it decided to break out at this time, who knows? We had kind of a suspicious large pump well before Mondelez and all that news. So who knows? There might have been some buy the rumor, sell the fact right around when that news hit. And if you push kind of through some of that resistance there, it kind of opens up some open skies. But it's also caught the attention of a fair amount of influencers. One of them is Credible Crypto. Credible Crypto is a great guy, probably one of the best technical analysis in the space. And he was looking at it from a chart point of view and saying, it looks like HBAR is going to break out. And he was saying this before we got through 10 cents. And just looking at the charts, it broke through and he was just really excited about it. He has a big following that could have helped us out as well. And he had so much conviction in it, he doubled his HBAR position. And we're not talking small numbers. He went from 5 million HBAR to 10 million HBAR. So he has some pretty deep pockets, but shout out to Credible Crypto. We even got somebody who I would say kind of put out a hit piece on HBAR. This was years ago. I put out a counter FUD piece to it, and that was the Coin Bureau. What were they saying about HBAR on Coin Bureau?
Yeah, so in what was an unprecedented move from that channel, they decided to flip positive as HBAR was pumping, as all these announcements were coming out, which I think is one of the best feelings we could possibly have, right? That guy was like the bane of our existence last bull run because the top video on the whole of YouTube for like 2 years was them basically saying that Hedera was not what it was saying on the package, right? And you obviously put out your great video, which rebuted that. So in this video, it's a short clip, it's about a minute and a half, but they cover the HBAR outperformance, and then they go on to talk about the source of swap breaking through all-time highs for total value locked on Hedera. They talk about the hash graph association ex-Ministry of Investment in Saudi Arabia, with their $250 million venture studio on Hedera. And then they talk about HBAR airdrops, which I can only assume to mean, of course, Earthlings, which is one of the main ones at the moment who are racking up the numbers there. Then the Calaxy referrals and a bit of Hedera Hashcoin as well. So it looks like the airdrops are picking up momentum. The use cases are picking up momentum and our DeFi economy. So much so that Coin Bureau has now covered us in a positive light, which I think is it's amazing news, and I think sort of the cherry on the top of the cake really for this week for me.
Well, one of the things that I was getting a little bit concerned about, what you'll have is certain tokens, they'll be really exciting in one cycle, and then you get to the next cycle and they kind of drop off. So I'm thinking about EOS, or I'm thinking about XRP. XRP, they've maintained a really good community, but they are struggling. We're seeing a little bit, and I was concerned that maybe Algorand and Hedera might be put into that space. And even though HBAR might go up from time to time over the past year, most of the time it was related to just the rest of the market going up. We didn't have any independent breakouts. And that's what I think is really important about this, is it shows that Hedera can independently have up 25% in the day when the rest of the market is pretty much completely flat. I think that changes the psychology of things. And what that leads to is us getting into the substance. That's what we talk about on a regular basis, is all the things that are being built on Hedera. And as the best promotion for Hedera is outperformance of the HBAR. You wouldn't even have to have a marketing department if the HBAR outperforms, because then it does its own marketing for it. And once we get to that point, you start bringing new people in, and then they start to dig into all the substance that we cover here week in and week out. That's what really gets them excited. They say, oh my gosh, there is a lot going on here. This is a sustainable network, and I want to be here for the long haul. And they become evangelical about the HBAR. There was another influencer that I was impressed with, and it was No BS Crypto. And he took a completely different bent. Of course, we always focus on the fundamentals and all the great things that are being built. But he was saying, these crypto networks, it's all about buzz. It's about the community. It's about how much excitement there is around a certain coin. And he was looking at the engagements for different coins. Right now, Hedera has about 1 million engagements per day, and that's a proxy for the community itself. It's a proxy for the buzz around a certain token. And he compared that to other tokens, Cardano and Polkadot and Avalanche. And based off of those metrics, he was saying that we're undervalued to the tune of 3 to 4x. Right. And granted, after this move, that might be 2 to 3x, but still showing that we're undervalued. So hats off to the Hedera community. They've been doing an absolutely great job and actually showing that we're undervalued compared to some of these other networks. But while we're talking about the HBAR, we did get a new listing, not a new listing on a new exchange, but a new pair. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so we saw Binance come out with a new trading pair for HBAR with the Turkish lira, with Filecoin for the Turkish lira, and WorldCoin with the Turkish lira. And what's really interesting is that those three coins were the three coins outperforming the market together over the last week. So it really seems that, like you said, the best form of marketing is outperformance. It also seems to be the best metric for network effects in terms of these exchange listings, in terms of integrations with wallets, this kind of thing. And so for me, the Turkish lira obviously has been in decline. It's really not a strong currency. But because of that, over 50% of the population are in crypto, according to Decrypt and according to KuCoin. And so the more people get paid in the lira, and then they seem to be converting it into Bitcoin at the moment. But if they have an option for HBAR, which of course we would like to think has more upside than Bitcoin and has a lot of utility behind it, all these prevailing narratives around enterprise adoption and DeFi and all these things, it really, really helps lift that kind of exposure for Hedera in a very, very crypto native country. So yeah, really excited about that. I've already seen a couple new Turkish HBAR barbarians commenting on my posts, and that's just really great to see. So excited about that for sure.
Yeah, well, in some of these countries, it's in the US or in the UK, it might be difficult to explain the importance of a sound currency, or what is compared to as a sound currency, because you have a sound currency in your native country. But when you go to places like Argentina, when you go to places like Turkey that have crazy amounts of inflation, they look at crypto as a safe haven.
Yeah.
Bitcoin is always the first step, but HBAR could fill that role just as easily. So it's that much more important in some of these countries that are having some difficulties when it comes to their own currency. All right, so you mentioned enterprise adoption. So I think we're going to dive into that. We're going to get into some of our fundamentals, some of the substance that I was talking about. The first one is, this is breaking news. Can you tell us about the EDF IBM use case that you noticed?
Yeah, so we had the November council meetings published, and within that, we heard a lot of exciting enterprise use case, which is, of course, the bread and butter of Hedera. And so IBM at the council meeting announced their new use case that's in the works called DICE, which is a digital identity solution and credential ecosystem for governments and enterprise. IBM, the birthplace of the computer, really, the birthplace of, everything that we know today from a sort of tech perspective. They were, those initial players and still relevant enough to be in the Fortune 65. And they don't stop innovating, right? They're an old school company that's remained relevant through consistent push and innovation. And an interesting fact about them is actually that they co-authored the Hedera Consensus white paper with Lehman. So these guys, are completely attached to the ecosystem. And so to know that a digital identity solution, which of course is one of the massive promises of blockchain technology, this is one of the primary focuses of governments, of enterprises, to have them behind us with a DID solution, I think is, we couldn't ask for anything better than that, to be honest. And we know that Hedera is in a lot of different digital identity consortiums. So this is, really exciting to see that we're not only part of those, but we're building with those. And so that's IBM, Fortune 65, massive use case. Then we go over to EDF Energy, who are one of the leading energy suppliers in the UK and Europe, and the French state-owned energy supplier in France. They are building a renewable energy verification hydrogen certification solution on Hedera for renewable energy in electric vehicles. Of course, a massive industry. Of course, Tesla there. Will we see some of them? Hopefully one day. But also a green hydrogen trading platform. So this, again, is two massive features, two massive use cases from what is the state energy provider of France. You can't understate these use cases that Hedera has, right? IBM and EDF just casually in a council meetings. And then we go to deeper down into that and we start hearing about telecom. There's a sort of a global industry body in the mobile telecoms industry, which consists of three of our council members, which are Zain, Tata Communications, and Deutsche Telekom. And Monique, who is, of course, one of the leading figures in the Hedera Council, she's been in conversation with this organization, with this telecoms organization, about various potential solutions on Hedera in the telco industry, which includes a Hedera-driven telco consortium and integrating the GSMA stakeholders, i.e. Tata, Zain, and Deutsche Telekom, into the Hedera ecosystem. And as part of this, they highlighted several key advantages of stablecoins, specifically for the telco industry, for enabling cost efficiency, interoperability, market expansion, automated payments, and DeFi integration. So we've just been hit with like an absolute landslide of enterprise use cases alongside this positive action of the HBAR in 1 week. And I think everyone's pleased now, right? At least at this moment in time, we've got the original Hedera HBAR variants, the enterprise lot. We've got the DeFi lot, the degens with Source Swap. It really seems to be all cylinders right now for the Hedera ecosystem. And yeah, I think, what better time for these announcements to be coming out, right? The ecosystem, the Web3 ecosystem has its eyes on Hedera, and we're not slowing down. And I think now we've got that retail component, but we also know that the Hedera ecosystem for enterprise isn't going to slow down. And to have these two forces together, which we haven't had before in a bull run, I think is just, that is exactly the momentum we need. And it doesn't seem like it's slowing down at all. So massive week for enterprise on Hedera.
And let's not forget about what SKUx is doing with Mondelez. I caught up with the president and one of the founders of SKUx, Bobby Tinsley. We just had an interview with him not long ago, but he went through exactly what they're doing with Mondelez. So let's check that out. Bobby, to start off, congratulations on the collaboration with one of the largest companies in the world, Mondelez.
Thank you, Brandon. We're super excited about Mondelez and our partnership and their joining the governing council. It's been an incredible week.
Well, you should be excited. So, to kick this off, I'd like to dig into the mechanics of what you're doing with Mondelez. Can you walk us through a SKUx promotion's life cycle from creation to issuance, redemption payment, and then finally retirement?
Yeah, so let me kind of take a step back. So let's talk about there's two different ways that we power promotions today at SKUx. Just try to simplify it for the audience, right? There's reactive promotions and there's proactive promotions. So from a reactive perspective, this is when a customer care incident occurs, right? Say there's a negative product experience and that brand is trying to seamlessly put that offer back in the consumer's hands to replace that product, right? We call that reactive promotions. Then there's the proactive side of the house, which is everything promotional, loyalty based, engaging consumers in the different avenues and methods that the brand wants to, engage their consumer. So from a reactive promotion perspective, that's what we're currently working on with Mondelez. It's the use case where there's, a bad product experience or there's a reason to replace that product. And the SKUx instant payment capability puts that payment in the consumer's hand as opposed to a physical check or a voucher, right? So from number one, it's a better consumer experience. We've taken a process that was 7 to 10 days from a physical check or coupon perspective for that consumer receiving the payment to under 30 seconds. So it's very transformative from the business process. We are significantly eliminating cost in that example, but we're also providing a much better consumer experience. So the process of a check today, I mean, everybody knows what happens with a check, right? There's waiting in the mail. There's the time of producing the check. You've got the post office literally saying, stop sending checks because of the fraud, right? And then the vouchers and the coupons in that process. Our platform powers that payment to the consumer's device. So the brand has full control to be able to set up the funds, be able to engage their consumer. In this example, it's through their customer care or their CRM management system to be able to say, okay, I need to send, let's just use an example, $5 towards this consumer, right? And then that consumer is able to click a link. And then within 30 seconds, they have that payment on their phone that can be tracked throughout the entire life cycle of the payment. So that's consumer received it, consumer downloaded it to their wallet, funds were spent at X location, right? And so from a Mondelez perspective and other brands that we work with, they lost all visibility into the issuance of those funds. When you put funds into, PayPal or Venmo or Zelle or some of the other, cash-based methods that brands are using today, they really lose the visibility into what happens to that cash the moment that they send it. Now with SKUx, we're able to actually power that distribution all the way through, and the data that they're able to collect provides the brand a better way to serve their customers, right? So the life cycle of that payment from a Hedera perspective, like we talked about in the last interview, is really taking it a step further and actually posting those transactions to the ledger and being able to show an immutable proof that the offer was distributed, that it was saved by the consumer, that it was redeemed at the merchant, that the consumer chose to redeem that offer.
Okay, fair. Now, how about the proactive side of that? Is that something you're going to explore in the future?
Absolutely. And we're doing lots of proactive promotions today. So think about, QR code scans in the middle of a stadium to engage that consumer to get an offer for like a major beverage brand. That's one of the promotions that we're powering right now, right? It's really a new world from a digital engagement perspective. That's what's so exciting about when we think about retail. We're not contained to just the newspaper or, some of the older methods of offer distribution. It's really anywhere that brand or that merchant wants to touch and engage their customer, our platform can power that. So from a proactive perspective, loyalty platforms, some of the sports and entertainment and travel verticals, there's some incredible things that we have going. Mondelez obviously is a global organization, massive company. They see tremendous application across their business to be able to leverage this capability. We've taken a very methodical approach with them, obviously, crawl, walk, run, starting in the use case that we're powering today that they're having a lot of experience with on the reactive side, but really looking at the proactive opportunities to engage their customers is super exciting.
So, what should we be looking for to know that a given Mondelez or a different brand promotion is actually powered by SKUx? Will SKUx be in the fine print? Will we be able to identify this with some Hedera network analysis? Or are there going to be some other ways to monitor your progress?
So from a Hedera network analysis, we will have the ability for consumers will be able to look and see different transactions that we're posting through HTS and other services that we leverage moving forward. I think it's very important though, and I always say this, from an enterprise perspective, SKUX has intentionally put ourselves in the background. There are lots of consumer promotional offer ecosystems and apps where front facing, it's download the Ibotta app or do that, and the brand is kind of second to it, right? We wanted to take a different approach. We wanted to make this about Mondelez. We wanted to make this about the CPG partners. When you go through the offer experience, you'll see powered by SKUX in the fine print, on our UI UX capability. But it's not about us, and that is something very intentional with our company. We're trying to put the consumer in control of getting access to that offer in a very seamless fashion, right? And that's what brands love about working with SKUX. When we talk about putting that information in a distributed ledger environment, in a public environment, we have to be very cautious and cognizant that some of this information is not going to be able to be put into a public environment. And some of it can be, right? Whether that's anonymizing consumer data if and when we capture any, whether that's aggregating transactions at a wallet or campaign level as opposed to an individual level. There's lots of thought process that go into how we structure campaigns from a distributed ledger perspective, adherent to a global brand like Mondelez's requirements, right? So we're not just saying like, hey, let's just go post a bunch of transactions on a ledger just because it sounds cool. That's not how it works. Like enterprise business, you have to be methodical. We've gained their trust, we've gained other companies' trust in this approach, and we're building this for the long term. So as we power more and more campaigns, as we power more and more use cases, we're all excited to see that volume drive, obviously, in terms of a Hedera perspective, but it is a long-term approach, definitely.
So, just to kind of extend on that, I know this question has come up a couple times already. You did a really good space with Genfinity last week, but what does the timeline look like for the SKUX Mondelez collaboration and other collaborations you have coming up for that ramp up?
Sure. I mean, we are live now with Mondelez, so we're powering these experiences in market right now. Just for everyone's awareness, we have already powered campaigns with major companies and attached those to the Hedera ledger. So that's something that we've already done. But again, the way that we've controlled that information from an anonymized perspective has been very intentional as we've been testing and really just talking to customers and finding out what information satisfies your requirements in terms of what you want to do from an audit perspective. What information do we need to keep secure? That's one of the benefits of distributed ledger environments, right? So we are planning on just driving this with Mondelez moving forward, but we're being sensitive obviously to their requirements and the speed at which they are moving, because obviously from an innovation perspective, this is very groundbreaking for them. It's completely new territory. And so, again, it's always a balance.
Well, Bobby, we had you on just a few weeks ago. You're already making great strides here. Is there anything else you'd like to pass on before we let you go?
We're fans. We're super excited. I mean, we've been building this with this community for years, and I think that's one of the things that we're really excited to see. The love and outpouring from the Hedera community and other CPG partners and merchant partners has really ramped up since this has come out. I think this is the first step of many to what we're all building towards. So, hello, future, all the way.
That's right. Well, Bobby, thank you so much for coming on and explaining this particular collaboration. Congratulations again, and good luck.
Absolutely. Thank you, Brandon.
So, Zep, it sounds like Bobby is a true H barbarian. He believes in the network, and of course, they're building some amazing things. I also had a really good conversation around that partnership with Rob and Sharkbites. We didn't get to any community questions this week, but we had a really good conversation. So, let's go to that next. Rob, welcome back. How's your week going?
Hey Brandon, it's what a great week it's been so far. It's yeah, loads going on as usual, but and much to talk about today.
Well, that's what we're going to focus on. We're not going to get into community questions this week. We'll hold off and do some of those next week. But
Hmm.
last week we recorded right before the big news about Mondelez joining the Hedera Governing Council, coupled with them working with a payments company called SKUx. With you being a payments guy and a council member representative, I thought this week we could focus on your insights into this addition. So what are your thoughts on Mondelez joining the Governing Council?
So Mondelez came to MemCon maybe 6 months ago. So we've known through the process that it's been coming. No one on the governing council knows the actual timing of the announcement, but clearly it's gone through the right governance processes. And SKUx, who have been a very strong supporter of the Hedera ecosystem for a couple of years now, were actually instrumental in introducing them. So it's a great example of a startup, a strong kind of Hedera grounded business, actually bringing a governing council member, a new governing council member into the into the reckoning. So and that's happened a few times now. But with Mondelez on the governing council and addressing that kind of retail, packaging and snacks market covers a whole area that we hadn't previously had covered. So not only do we have a very, very strong proponent and advocate in SKUx driving these use cases, we've also got one of the world's biggest retail companies that, with brands that we all know so well now at the table. So as the chair of CorpCom, or the co-chair, I love this idea because not only does it have a real world use case which we can all relate to, it's active. And as Bobby says, that SKUx have been actually on mainnet doing real world transactions on Hedera for a while now. It's probably gone under the radar. Very pertinent that the enterprise use cases do take time to actually make a mark and start scaling. And secondly, are very, very commercially sensitive. So we don't always know that they're there. They don't always do the high TPS that everyone wants because, that's a very obvious and transparent use of the network. But enterprises don't always operate like that. They have to be commercially sensitive to their competition, but they also have to be very aware of their customers' privacy concerns too. So, all of these things usually mean that enterprise uses of the network are relatively stealthy until they're not. And then, of course, everyone knows. So all of these factors make this really, really interesting. The specific use cases are super interesting to me as a payments guy. The fact that they're tackling the reactive use cases first, addressing problems in the existing system. We always say, what are the problems to be solved here? And the problems that they're dealing with in terms of turnaround time on refunds, fraud that's inherent in the check post systems, and better user experience, because that's a point of friction in any retail interaction. You get a poor experience with a long refund time and dissatisfied customer, then they're less likely to come back. If you have this point of interaction where actually you can surprise and delight that customer, you've got an immediate opportunity to actually flip that point of friction or bad experience into actually an even better one. And that's what SKUx are doing with these initial use cases. It's addressing a real world problem. It's taking out cost. So that actually adds to the bottom line of the business. It can operate at scale, which is necessary with a business such as Mondelez. And it kind of gets the customer engagement connection better than it was before. And with companies like Mondelez, with brands and with product, they often are distributed through retailers or through other channels. They lose that connection with their end customers. This is an excellent way for them to ensure that those links are maintained and that they are the experience is controlled by the brand. It's because it's the brand that suffers most when the consumer has a bad experience. So dealing with all of those use cases first makes absolute sense, and it's great to see Bobby and the SKUx team working with Mondelez to do that. Then in the future, the more proactive use cases where we see rewards and discounts and other ways of engaging consumers, that's where it gets very exciting, because there is lots of new and innovative ways that you can use this technology to do that. And I'm very excited about how the Corporate Utilization Committee can help them ideate and work through those use cases, how we can bring some of the lessons learned from elsewhere in the ecosystem to help them kind of drive that change, and see what the use cases are that they've come up with themselves for their particular sector, because if nothing else, it's a scale business, and Hedera is a scale network.
So do you have any concerns about, when I asked Bobby, when is this going to come to market? He's like, oh, it's already here. Do you have any concerns about this hitting the proper scale to really impact the Hedera network?
Well, no concerns about scale impact the Hedera network, of course, because we scale so well. Being an enterprise,
I meant as like a revenue driver,
sure,
like enough
sure.
transactions to really impact us as far as the revenue.
Why? No, of course I don't. I think that those who expect 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 transactions a second next week off the back of this announcement will be disappointed.
Sure.
But that's not how it works. It's a slow and steady growth. They will optimize over time. Maybe they'll start with high TPS, then find a way to optimize that, because there's always a trade-off between cost and the benefit of those transactions. So they'll work that out as they go. I'm very confident that any business, and I say this a lot, any business that isn't just one use case. The first use case is the gateway drug. It's the hook. And once the enterprises are comfortable with the types of use case, with the infrastructure, with the connectivity to the world network, to wallet infrastructure and custodial solutions, managing HBAR accounts, all of those things need to be worked through initially. And there's always a lot of resistance. This is brand new technology, and there's a lot of people. We're kind of immersed in it. And we think it's obvious, but there's a lot of people, the vast majority, who have never even thought these issues through, and including a lot of technologists who are very kind of focused on the ways that it's always been done. So that paradigm shift, that step change in terms of thinking and moving to a world that's tokenized, moving to a world where distributed ledgers enable value to be transferred in new ways, takes quite a lot of shift, and in some organizations more so than others. So I think that this first phase for any organization will take some time. It sounds like SKUx is helping Mondelez move quicker than they otherwise would. I think it's a great way of thinking about it, because the world doesn't wait for you. And the innovators and challengers in every sector, every industry are experimenting and bringing to market DLT-based solutions now. So the enterprises and corporates that are not doing that will fall behind. And their boards, I'm sure, are considering the strategic options around how they adopt this technology. Boards tend not to think about technology unless they're quite progressive. So it's the technology teams, the innovation teams that need to drive that discussion. And so having all of those conversations take place takes time and experimentation, and there's risk aversion to overcome. But once we're there, and having the champions, at the table driving that change and explaining and educating the product officers and the risk officers and the executive teams that this is a better way of doing it, and they can actually become more competitive in a market on one hand, but also defend against the threats, which sometimes in some industries will be existential. That discussion needs to take place. And so the time it takes to get through that is different with every business. But once it's overcome, then it's, clear water, and I expect these things to take off. Long way of answering the question. I am not worried at all. I see it across every single enterprise we talk to. Every single governing council member is going through something similar. They're all moving at different paces because of all the reasons that I've just said. And they will all make business decisions based on their own strategies and their own kind of commercial model about TPS. I mean, boards don't care about TPS. They don't care about the revenue that they're paying or the price they're paying away to a network to use it. They want to know what the benefits are, or the returns in terms of those investments and that operating expenditure. And that doesn't always equate to 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 transactions a second. There'll be other ways of utilizing the network, but they will certainly be utilizing the network. And as every new enterprise uses the network, we'll get more and more and more TPS and more revenue.
Well, there's a couple of other things that I'm excited about with this addition. Number one, it's a new industry, right? We've been hitting a couple industries. We have LG, we have Hitachi. There's a few where we have a few things checking off. We have IBM, we have Google, we have Dell Technologies. But here it's a completely new industry. Also, with SKUx, a lot of times I think these council members, they'll enter to get exposure to all the other council members we have out there. But here with SKUx, if you look at some of the brands that they have, Mondelez is just one of them. You have Pepsi, and you have Cheez-Its, and you have Miracle Grow. So it's going to expose them to the Hedera and the benefits of Hedera as well. So it's kind of going the other way around, putting everything on its head.
Well, yeah, and it's a bit like Atma, right? So Atma is a very similar in terms of supply chain or retail engagement type use case. It reaches out to all those brands. It's a brand platform, right? And I think SKUx will be doing the same thing, not with Mondelez only, but with all of their partners, because they're a business that isn't exclusive to one channel partner. So I think it all looks very, very good to me. And then on the point of collaboration, that's where the corporate utilization committee comes in, because we provide a space in which notes can be shared. We can run use case workshops. We can learn the lessons collaboratively between all the governing council members, and they can all be better off for it. So I'm very excited to be doing that. I've already kind of engaged with a number of the governing council members that are keen to both support and to learn from the Mondelez experience.
Well, good stuff. All right, so we're actually keeping this one down to a shark bite this week, but I have one more thing that I wanted to cover. What did you think about the reception around the HBAR weighted airdrop from Earthlings that we discussed last week?
Yes, I'm wearing my Earthlings merch because it's an awesome design. Plus, it's such a great team. Like I said last week, I mean, I've really enjoyed being party to some of the conversations being had by the Earthlings team. And in particular, the airdrop, right? I don't know what the stats are, but yesterday it was something like 20,000 different accounts had, or more, maybe now, had associated the 3 tokens. I think it's resonating really well. I'm looking forward to seeing the stats around, the number of HBAR in all those wallets, because that will give us a sense for how people have responded, and I think see the level of engagement. But as we currently stand, less than 1 week. I mean, so we're recording this on Wednesday, so we're only 3 or 4 days into the announcement. And to have that level of engagement at a time, to be frank, where we've seen all sorts of market dynamics going off. We've had the announcement of the Hashpack token as well, and lots of really great kind of news stories. So for this to stand out amongst all of that great news in the Hedera ecosystem actually speaks volumes as well. So. Yeah, super excited for the actual airdrop, which is the first of 4, and we'll see how that goes. But yeah, lots of really great news. What about you? Are you happy with the way it's going? As the
I couldn't be
architect
happier.
of the airdrop.
Well, Earthlings, I mean, the engagement on their tweet, the questions, the inquiries were fantastic. The amplification was really good. To answer your question, I know we're well over $250 million HBAR that has been allocated so far, and that number's only going up. And this, as you mentioned, this is just the first one. This is going to continue. And they have it set up with the tokenomics to be able to kind of adjust to compensate for additional people coming on in the future. So it's going to be fun to watch. Again, this is just kind of a proof of concept within the Hedera ecosystem, so it's going to be fun to watch. But Rob, we didn't get to any community questions this week. We'll get to them again next week, but still, everybody out there, make sure you keep dropping your questions down there in the comments or use Rob's HCS 20 initiative, and those will certainly take priority. But Rob, like always, we appreciate your insights. Thanks for stopping by. So, Zep, I really liked Rob's conversation around Earthlings. He truly believes in that as well. And Earthlings has been doing gangbusters as far as the engagement they're getting on their airdrop. You mentioned earlier that it's been brought up by other influencers. They're noticing that airdrops are happening on the Hedera network. I think at last check, we had well over 20,000 accounts that had associated those 3 tokens to qualify for that airdrop. So the next step is just to get the next team who is an HTS issuer to jump on this bandwagon and to continue these HBAR weighted airdrops, because I really think they're pretty powerful. We also had Mason. He's a huge fan of Hedera, but he was saying that we need to have airdrops in the Hedera ecosystem. And just in time, we had this Earthlings airdrop, so that certainly helped. Well, we're going to shift gears. I know we've been talking a lot about enterprise, and then we shifted over to retail with Earthlings, but I want to get back to enterprise. There was something that came out around Metacourt that you highlighted. Can you run us through that?
Yeah, so Metacourt we've seen before in some other ecosystems like Algorand, but this use case on Hedera is actually a much deeper integration that I've seen on other chains. So this is a collaboration with Metacourt, with the Hashgraph Association, and the Swiss Digital Assets Institute. So this is a very, very high caliber collaboration. It's got the Swiss stamp of approval, which doesn't really get much higher than that. And in this case, it's focused on real world assets, which of course is the prevailing institutional narrative at the moment. But what's really interesting about this use case is that it's designed to be as frictionless as possible, right? It's a no-code solution for whirling up your own real world assets or security governance tokens or whatever it might be within the Hedera token service, but with that focus on real world assets. So this means that the barrier of entry is greatly reduced to real world assets on Hedera. But not only this, is this friction reduced, they also have a sort of Web3 investment arm as part of this. And as we know, real world assets, are dependent on liquidity coming in, not only from proving this thesis that they're a real viable product coming out of Hedera, but also just so that these projects stay afloat, right? You need liquidity to stay afloat in this market. And so the last thing that it said on the website was that the blockchain of the people, which is a part of this initiative, serves as the underlying token solution, fueling the ecosystem and providing unlimited liquidity. So I don't know how unlimited that liquidity is, but if it's coming from the Swiss Digital Asset Association, I imagine that liquidity pool is pretty deep. And for them to use a term like unlimited would really suggest that there is strong liquidity market makers there for them. So exciting to see what should be a highly liquid real world asset solution on Hedera.
Absolutely. And we're going to shift gears a little bit again. You are our resident expert on Calaxy, and they have some updates as well.
Yeah, so Calaxy have been all engines with their new text onboarding solution, which is basically enables you to send a text message to your friend with a referral link. They download it, they go through the link, and they get airdropped Calaxy tokens at the end of the 20-day period, which this campaign's on for. But it's been effective enough that they've seen over 30,000 new accounts, many of which are very active, and there's still about 20 days left. So it's really exciting to see that, user influx. And I know there's some great Calaxy announcements in the next sort of 2 to 3 months, which hopefully will only push them further there. So yeah, great stuff from Calaxy as always.
And Zep, there's another thing that I want to get into. I know that people have been talking about oracles and the need to have really good quality oracles within the Hedera ecosystem. And there's been an awful lot of buzz because it sounds like we're going to be getting some major oracle providers within the Hedera ecosystem. We don't have all the information on it quite yet, so I think we're going to hold off and talk about that next week, but it looks really promising. All right, so with that, this weekend, we're going to have Karate Combat 44. And one of the most exciting things, not just to do within the Hedera ecosystem or within the crypto ecosystem, but the broader sports space, is participating in up-only gaming for Karate Combat. It's going to be just tonight, so it's just a few hours away. The voting, you still have several hours to vote, and we wanted to give you some information on, the different fighters, the different fights, and give you some tips. So I had Dane. He's a Karate Combat insider. We've had him on several times in the past. He came on to give us the inside track on all the fighters and the fights, so let's check it out. Dane, welcome back. You ready to get into some Karate Combat 44?
Yeah, always ready when I'm with you, Brandon. You make it so easy, and happy to be here with the HBAR Bull.
Well, good stuff. So just to explain why we're focusing on this on a Hedera show, Karate Combat has implemented up-only gaming, and what up-only gaming is, they have a token that's been built on the Hedera network called Karate, and you can take those tokens, acquire them either through promotions or airdrops or on the open market. You shift those over to your Karate Combat app. You can then take those tokens and you place them on the fighters that you think are going to win. If they win, you get more tokens. If you lose, you don't lose anything. Now, granted, the market does fluctuate. They are available on the open market, so the price of the token can change, so you have to take that into consideration, but it is very exciting. I've been doing it for about a year now, and it has been an absolute blast. And here today we have Dane, who is an expert on Karate Combat, who's going to kind of give us some pointers on the different fighters and maybe give us some ideas on how we might want to place those tokens. But of course, it is not financial advice. All right, Dane, we'll jump right into it. The first fight you wanted to go over is at lightweight. We have 0-3 Turshak versus 0-1 Shannon Hudson. How do you see this one going?
So the records don't tell the full story here. You seem like, two guys who haven't gotten a win, somebody's going to win. Of course. But Turchik has really struggled to get a foothold in Karate Combat. And when you see somebody who's 0-3 getting a fight at all, you know that this is a do or die situation for that fighter. But this is not easy. You can't look past Turchik because, again, very highly experienced. He had a very competitive fight, ironically, or interestingly enough, against one of Chinzo Machida's students. So he lost that fight, but it was competitive. So I don't know, a bit of karate math there, bringing that up, but I would lean for Shannon Hudson to win just because Turchik has had a lot of trouble with this rule set, and he's he's been knocked out now, I think 2 times, at least once. So I think Shannon is bigger physically as well. So I'm leaning towards Shannon, but props to this guy, Shannon Hudson. I mean, one of the guys I'm most impressed with in Karate Combat, frankly, right now.
I will say I would lean toward Shannon in this one as well, but we're going to have to see how the karate actually gets bet on this and see which way it leans. All right, so the next one we have is a new one to the pit. We have Escarrega versus Nikita Yanchuk, and Nikita Yanchuk is 2-1, but that one loss was against one of the best in the sport.
That's right.
So how do you see this one going?
Yeah, exactly. You're right to mention that. That loss was against Luis Rocha. I mean, he's the champion of his division, so you see how where he went from that. In fact, I believe that was the fight that earned him his title shot. Was he had this beautiful body kick knockout that he defeated Yanchuk with. But Yanchuk is no slouch. What I like about Yanchuk is he is very tactical. He's very methodical. He'll make you fight a slow-paced fight. Wasn't able to do that against the Pitbull, but that man's nickname and style precedes him. In this case, he's fighting somebody who is really what you would refer to as a regional fighter. So somebody with no global fighting experience, no world combat, no championship level stuff going on here with Escarrega. He is very successful in his region of Mexico, of course, and that's 6-1 in his local MMA scene. But in mixed martial arts and in karate, I have to go with Nikita Yanchuk's experience here, not just in karate combat, but even he's just kind of has more experience all across the board. So that's how I'm looking at this. A bit less discussing the fighter himself in Escarrega, frankly, but you can look at a person's history sometimes, not always, and get a good gleaming of, are they ready for this stage? And in my opinion, Escarrega is not.
That's fair. All right, so the next one we have are two newcomers to karate combat. We have Amaro Keen and Andre Yule. Now, they might be new to karate combat, but they are not new to combat sports in general. How do you see this one rolling?
Yeah, not new at all. Marroquin has been fighting in Combate Global. Again, so we just were talking about regional experience maybe not being enough. This man has literal global experience. It's the name of the organization he was fighting in. And not only that, he's 15-3 in that organization. That is a stellar record. Now, Yule, less gorgeous record. This is off memory. I want to say 18-10. However, when you look where he was fighting and how he was fighting, you may not hold that against him. He was in a long run, a long UFC career. Yule is coming off a knockout loss. Marroquin, that beautiful record of 15-3, definitely overshadows on paper the 18-10 or whatever it is. But most of his fight wins are submissions. This is karate combat. There are no submissions. So I think this could turn out to be a pick'em, but I'm very suspicious that Yule will get the majority of the karate token action just because he is the Afro Samurai. He is recognizable to most fans in America as a UFC fighter, and he's there in Mexico with UFC fighter Bobby Green. So if that guy's in his camp, he is a striker extraordinaire with tons of fans, and I think that's going to lend him a bit of star power in this one. But interesting fight, good fight. Myself, I'm leaning toward Yule, but again, that chin question mark means for me, I'm not going to put too many tokens down on him, right?
And it really depends if the other guy is that much of a dog. It might be worth it to try to throw some tokens that way, right?
You're right. You're absolutely right. The guy hasn't been defeated too many times in his professional career. There could be a good reason for that.
All right, so you mentioned UFC, and I believe I've seen these next two guys both in the UFC. We have Escudero and Alves. Now, I think I saw a fight with these two gentlemen going up against the same guy, and Escudero won that fight, where Alves lost against that same guy, but I know that Escudero won by submission, and as you said before, there's no submissions in karate combat. So how do you see this fight going?
Yeah, and in fact, Escudero's career is one of mostly submission stylists. So, he's local to Mexico. There is an advantage to that, but he's been everywhere. He was a short-lived UFC career, but he was there, and that matters. But another thing is now we have two problems. So we have the mostly submissions challenge point, and we also have the recent KO loss challenge point. So that's really heavy for me to have both of those red flags popping off. So, I'm trying to give this advice this time kind of in a way where if you went off and did your own research, you're making a note, making a flag. Okay, there's that flag Dane was talking about. There's that challenge point he was telling me to consider. Because as you're going through records on your own for maybe some other fights that we don't cover, you'll have that in your sort of data bank. Alves, on the other hand, again, not the most beautiful record, 21-12, but that's a long record. That's a long career. And in the UFC, he entered the UFC through what's called the Contender Series. People love these guys that get through on the Contender Series, so he's going to have some star power for sure. However, after entering through the Contender Series, didn't have a great career. 1-3 in the UFC. So not what you want to do when you get that opportunity. Sort of didn't make the most of it, but career redemption here in karate combat. He could get himself right back on the stage. He has a following. He has people who thought he could have done better in the UFC, and they're going to have their eyes on this. So for me, you can do the little bit of MMA math there with the win and the lose, but submissions, recent KO loss, both of them are similarly inconsistent. I'm going to lean Alves. I'm going to lean his way, but I'm not heavy leaning.
That's fair.
Yeah.
That's fair. All right, so next up at lightweight, we have these guys, Rind and Kubas. Now, Rind has been tearing through the lightweight division. He's 155 pounds and 6'1". So, and he's not skinny. I mean, he's a slender guy, but he has a lot of muscle on him as well. Giant for a lightweight here. How do you see this one rolling?
On a good day, I'm 155 pounds, and I'm gazing up at this giant, when I'm next to Shazay Brind. I think here we are. We were just talking about so many competitive fights, and I'm only leaning, only maybe this challenge point, that challenge point. This isn't a fight where we discuss challenge points. I think Shazab is on a beeline to the top, and if you're willing to take a fight with him, you're doing it at your own peril. Because if you're not in the top contender level of karate combat, you really don't belong in there with Shazab, frankly. Marco Kubas is not going to be the same size as him. He's not going to have the same experience as him. He has no global experience. Shazab has tons, not just karate combat. He did bare knuckle MMA. He's been around the block, not insider information. This is just, I really have a strong hunch here, Brandon, that people aren't willing to take a fight against Shazab in karate combat.
All right, so in the co-main event, we have somebody from the PFL. We have Alejandro Flores versus homegrown in the karate combat, Bruno Assis. What are your thoughts on this one?
That. I mean, your phrasing is perfect so far. That PFL success that Alejandro Flores has had is significant. This isn't one of those mixed records kind of guys. 21-4. This guy has experienced real top competition of the world in MMA. So what Bruno has going for him is the specialized experience over such a long period of time. I don't know if he has 8 fights or 9 fights, but a very winning record. Fought the who's who, only loses to people who become champions or somebody who was a champion in another league in the case of Varga. And every fight is competitive. I think the only not competitive fight he had was against Edgar Scrivers, but that was a long while back now. So those days are behind him. I think he's a competitive fight for anyone in the world, including Scrivers, who I adore as a fighter. So Bruno is specialized. He is experienced in karate combat. And here's the kicker for me that makes me lean ever so slightly toward Bruno. And I am pulling my bias aside. I feel confident in that. Flores looks a lot smaller than Bruno. I mean, he looks fragile compared to Bruno. Bruno is big for the division. He's a guy like Shazab who understands the magic of cutting weight and rehydrating properly and feeling his best during fight night. I've seen him shrink and then poof, and he's never tired. He's got it down. He's got it down, Brad. He must just have had this for a lifetime at this point, And so his size and endurance, we see it in every fight. He's willing to trade. He's willing to take to give. And he almost paid for it against Tim Ha. And that was a close call for Bruno. But again, the experience, the resiliency, the size, the power, the toughness, the chin. He's a full package fighter. So if anyone's going to stop somebody who's like a steam train coming into the league like Flores, it would be Bruno Assis. This, for me, if it wasn't Alejandro's first fight here, could have been a title contendership decider match. In this case, I think either one of these guys with a win here, one more win, and they're fighting for the title.
Okay, fair enough. Let's get to the main event. We have Perez versus Chelmiet. This is going to be a good fight. I'm really interested to hear what you have to say on these two.
Yeah, another situation where someone's getting fast-tracked to the contendership level. So sure. Owen Chelmiet obviously is the former bantamweight champion of karate combat. Eric Perez, 20-9, solid record, mixed martial arts. Again, a lot of MMA guys coming in now that President Awesome is president. He's opening up the floodgates. He's bringing big challenges to the homegrown guys. Yeah. You have to now live up to a new standard. And in some cases, we've seen these guys who are crossing over get obliterated, and in other cases, we're seeing they're new contenders now. So it's very even, which is exciting for me that it was even. Because as a karate combat guy,
it wouldn't have been great if like all the karate combat guys got beat or the other way around. And it's very even.
Exactly. So Perez 7-2 in the UFC. That is a chef's kiss record for the UFC. Here's the challenge points. Here are those red flags. They are coming. He tried to cross over from the UFC to Bellator. I'm not sure why, but typically it's financial because he had a great record. He could have stayed. So when he did that crossover, he got knocked out. And after that knockout loss, his career has not been the same. He is 1-4 in his last 5. Okay, 1-4 in his last 5, and you're getting fast tracked now to a former champion. So for me, this is a fight that Owen should win. But where it gets tricky for Owen is the limited experience only within karate combat versus 20-9, 7-2 in the UFC. Again, a bit of an echo of the co-main fight. The difference here is that little extra lean I had for Bruno, which was his size and endurance and toughness. Owen doesn't have that advantage over Perez. These are both small bantamweights. They're going to be right about the same size. So, and bantamweight guys are small. They're as small as it gets for the men in karate combat right now. So, yes, Owen is the former and long reigning bantamweight champion. We have seen him be very endurant and very tough in fights. The fight against Jesus Lopez was a barn burner. He was taking knees to the head. He was taking kicks to the head. He was dishing out as well. And just to survive 5 rounds with Owen, 5 rounds. Owen is a 5-round fighter. Mm-hmm. This is not a 5-round fight, unless they're doing 5 for the main. Have you heard that? I'm not sure.
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I wouldn't think so. It's not a championship fight unless they're doing something special. Yeah.
Yeah. So if it's a 3-round fight, and that does matter, Owen's pace is probably going to be unlike we've ever seen his pace before. I think he has a lot to prove, and I think he is a fan service fighter. And so this fight, when you look at this guy being 1-4 in his last 5, there's a psychological red flag for me there of thinking, oh, yeah, I'm 1-4, but that was over there. Now I'm going to go to karate combat, and I'm going to walk all over this guy. Like, this guy just got knocked out. But so I think this is a fight that you have to really weigh the psychology of the fighters. And for me, I'm really liking the psychological analysis for Owen coming into this fight, even off of the liver shot loss. Whereas coming off of a 1-4, you're already 20-9. You have had this long career. I'm not sure that that's the hunger required to beat a person like Owen Chelmia. Skill set aside, he's a mixed martial artist. It's not easy to just convert into karate combat. So if you'd been losing 1-4, you might fall privy to the fallacy that, oh, okay, this is going to be easier. It's not going to be easier, Brandon. It's going to be harder. Mm-hmm. You need to be specialized for longer. Not my best analysis, I'll say, of this fight, because I am really focused on their minds. So, do your own research and, of course, check for those challenge points and create your own challenge points. What's a challenge point for you, So that's where we're at for this one. KC44.
There you go. So that's fair. Now, I know you can't do any analysis on this. These guys haven't had fights before, but just from an entertainment standpoint, what do you think of the Influencers Fight Club that we're also going to see on this? And we're also going to have some up-only gaming on these events as well.
I like it, Brandon. You know why I like it? Because one day, if I'm ever an influencer, I'd like to participate. I think that would be awesome and fun. So I want there to be something like that out there for people to do, especially old guys, as we're getting old. And I'm not in my fighting prime, but if someone else who's not in their fighting prime wants to give it a go and make people happy and make fans excited, then I'm all for it, man.
Well, Dane, you're influencing me. Thank you so much for swinging on today. Your picks certainly help everybody, all the Hederians out there. Again, thank you.
Thanks. I'd just like to shout out one project I'm a part of, if that's okay with you, Brandon. So outside of my fight analyses, I'm actually a professional musician. That's something not many of your fans may know. I am releasing a double vinyl. It's 70 minutes of psychedelic music from all different genres around the world. And I have some major stars from other countries. So there's a guy from Pakistan who has 50 million views on his hit single, and he's made a song with me, and that's a rap song. Then I have another artist who's famous from electronic music, a strange group called Spangle that's very intriguing and fun. And Simon Posford, who's one of their lead songwriters, has joined me for an electronic song, and it's very exciting. It's one of the projects I'm most proud about ever. Now, the vinyl market is certainly not the crypto market, but what I will tell you, Brandon, is that the vinyl market is exploding right now, and resale value on super limited edition vinyls is high. So if you're curious about the music, you can buy it, and I will just about guarantee that you will be able to sell it at bare minimum for what you paid for it, because there's only 400 copies. Then there's all these people around the world trying to get it. So anyway, learn about this project on danecurley.com, and thank you so much for the platform to share that with you.
We'll check it out. Thanks again, Dane.
Thanks, Brandon. Take care.
So, Zep, you might have noticed that that was edited down a fair amount. When Dane and I get talking, we get into it. Now, I do have the full version of that conversation. It's over 30 minutes long. I'm going to be posting it to X here in a couple hours, but at least that gave you a taste. And with that, we'll go ahead and get into some Hedera network analysis. So we're still maintaining right around 1,300 transactions per second on the Hedera network. We also had a spike to about 8,400 transactions per second, so pretty impressive there. We did see a slight increase in the time to consensus finality when they upgraded the network, but we're still just a little bit over 3.2 seconds, so not a big change there. They may have optimized for something else. Another data point of note is we're getting closer to 1 million smart contract calls, or just under $50,000 in revenue from just that one service alone. Account growth stayed strong with over 44,000 created and 93,000 active accounts. With our fungible tokens, Wrapped HBAR took the top spot, again reflecting the strength of our DeFi ecosystem. This was followed by the meme coin Grelf, Karate Combat's Karate, Saucer Swap's Sauce, and USDC. Next up, we have the meme coin Unlucky, followed by PH Steam from Earthlings. Now, I don't know for sure, but I think the buzz around the HBAR weighted airdrop has more Earthlings NFT token holders participating in their daily Earthlings NFT drip, which is boosting PH Steam's transactions. The one that shows NA is some kind of a mix-up because it's the NFT for Earthlings airdrop. Next up, we have XSauce, followed by Steam, and that symbol is also misshowing. Moving down to our NFTs, Lithos Rant CPU card packs again dominated with half of our top 10 spots. Granted, if the Earthlings bag holder NFT was properly represented as an NFT, it would be in the number 2 spot. We also have Saucer Swap's Liquidity Provider NFT, the Korean mobile game Slime World NFT, Road Code 2024 Access Card, and Zero all making into the top 10 list. We also saw another showing from the Tolem NFT, showing their carbon credit marketplace is also remaining active. So Zeb, do you have anything else you'd like to pass on fungible tokens or NFTs?
Hashpack, of course, with their pack token, highly anticipated, potentially going to be one of the biggest token launches on Hedera I think we've ever seen. They have announced that one way to get this token will be through a new NFT that is in the works, which I'm sure we'll learn about in the next couple of weeks or so. So that's just one to be aware of. I'll definitely be picking that up so that I can get part of that pack distribution. But I'm sure a lot of the community also will to support them there. Alongside that, Dead Pixels put out a post for onboarding, which was that you can go into the Dead Pixels Discord. You can use, I think it's ! Ghost Pay, and actually receive a small distribution of HBAR to set up your own Hashpack wallet and sort of play around with that ecosystem. So really cool the onboarding that's coming from over there. Also, Earthlings, I saw they've got their chickens. There's some chickens that I saw on Centex. I picked up one of those. And yeah, just a lot of exciting things going on. Those are probably the top 3 that I've seen this week.
Yeah, Earthlings has their sidekick animals. They have all kinds of them. They're going to have sharks. They're going to have chickens, wolves. I mean, go down the line. And I'm not exactly sure how they're going to work in the game, but it should be fun to watch. All right, with that, let's get into some DeFi. Taking a look at DeFi Llama, Hedera TVL has gone vertical and is well over $130 million, helped by both the move in HBAR as well as Sauce and other HTS tokens. Saucer Swap is pretty much the entire market, but we still need to see what HSuite is doing, and they aren't shown on DeFi Llama quite yet. Taking a look at the rewards on Saucer Swap's popular trading pairs, HBAR X version 1 is at 6.6%, HBAR Sauce V1 is at 34%, and V2 is at 173%. HBAR USDC V1 is at 68%, V2 at 217%. The reason we're seeing such large rises in V2 on Saucer Swap is a combination of increased volume and people getting pushed out of their V2 trading ranges. HBAR Karate is up to 79%, up because people pulled liquidity for Karate Combat 44, but I think you're safe putting it back in right after the snapshot is taken, but personally, I don't risk it. Over on HelloSwap, HBAR Heli is at 68%, 10% on HBAR USDC, and 162% on USDC Tether. The general crypto market has been flat this week, but on Friday generally turned red, with Bitcoin down 1% on the day and 2% on the week to about $51,000. But there have been bright spots, including HBAR, which is up over 30% on the week. We gave up some gains as crypto turned red today, but we are still well above that support at 10 cents. At the time of recording, we are sitting right at 11 cents, and if we make another run north, I would look to 12 cents for resistance. After that point, there's not a lot of resistance all the way up to 16 cents. All right, Zep, that's pretty much all we have. Is there anything else you'd like to pass on?
I mean, I think the most exciting thing for me that this week has highlighted is that we are outperforming the market very early on. We've gone from rank 38 to 24, now down to 27. And not only have we got a enterprise ecosystem that is much, much bigger than last bull run, but we also have DeFi, NFTs, DPIN, SocialFi, GameFi. We have all of these retail products which didn't exist last bull run. And so now we have the networked effects of those individual communities, of the new people they bring in for the whole duration, of how long Hedera now exists, but especially for this bull market. And GameFi is a big narrative, DPIN is a big narrative, SocialFi is a big narrative, and of course, the institutional adoption of Web3 is what everyone's looking at. And when these new market entrants come in, right, as they do when Bitcoin hits the news and everyone goes, oh wow, Bitcoin's famous again. We should check this out. This is the fourth time we've seen this. It's probably time to get in now. They will see that they won't. I don't think those people will be looking at DeFi. I don't think they'll be looking at that stuff. They'll be looking at what is familiar in the real world that they think that they can enter based on familiarity and comfortability. Right? Bitcoin, familiar. It's in the news. Ethereum might be kind of familiar. It's sometimes in the news. When you see Google, Boeing, IBM, Standard Bank, Ubisoft, these are traditional stock market, public traded companies that are so familiar in the real world, that are household names, that if you are new coming in as a retail buyer, I really think that just array and display of global organizations is exactly what you'll be piquing your interest and making you have a look at the network. So I really hope we just see more governing council content, more governing council promotion, and of course the continuation of the retail ecosystem growth for the native Web3 users. And it really seems like that's happening. So, I mean, what an incredible week for Hedera. And I mean, everything's through the roof. It's, I haven't been this excited for a long time, I'll tell you that.
Well, we talked about credible crypto, and he made a point that was kind of surprising. He said that Hedera is best suited for retail, right? And we think of it as the enterprise chain. And the only reason why Hedera has focused so much on enterprise is because if they can meet the needs of mission critical enterprise applications, they can meet the needs of everybody, including all those really cool retail applications. But the fact that Credible came out and said that Hedera is at the top as far as retail ease of use and so forth is just huge. Now, next week, we're going to have some more stuff coming out. I have a gaming use case that I might be highlighting next week. I also have an interview with Kamal. It was supposed to be this week. It got pushed back to next week. So we're going to be talking about that Saudi investment, which of course is huge. I'm not exactly sure what we're going to do for the Twitter space next week, but we'll figure something out. But all around, like you said, you can't get much more exciting than what we saw this week, and it only keeps coming. This is where all the hard work that happened from all of our builders during the bear market starts to pay off. All right, Zep, that's all we have. We'll see everybody next week.